Brian Taylor joins us right now. How impressed were you with Scottie on that day 4 performance?
I'll tell you, it wasn't his prettiest round of golf that he's ever played, but it reminded me a lot of vintage Tiger Woods in the sense that he basically won that thing with his B game.
Yeah.
And he did everything to keep it between the lines, didn't make the big number, knew he had a little bit of a cushion even when it got tied up with Rahm. He made the birdie on 10 to jump back in front, and he just made everybody else try to come and get him and let them fall apart, let them make the mistakes, let them, mess up. And he just stayed the course, even when he didn't have his best stuff. And I'll tell you, it's not easy. The golf course played way tougher than I thought it was going to. And it was a battle for Scottie. He said it was the hardest earned win that he's had so far. And just really impressive. He's doing stuff, that, like I said, that the greats will do, and he certainly is on his way to becoming one of the greats.
What about the collapse of Jon Rahm, and what do you think went into that?
There's a lot of things that you could say about that. If you listen to what John said, he said a lot of people blame this on me going to live and that I lost my competitive edge. And he said, if you look at it, he said, since I won the Masters in 22, I guess it was 23, he said I didn't win again. And so that year, so the slide had already happened, is what he said. There's a lot of people that are going to point to the fact that he's gone over to live. It's guaranteed money. It's 54 holes. It's no cut. They don't play 4 rounds, and he collapsed on the 4th round. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of done with the live, picking on the live or trying to discredit the live, which I still don't like the live. I still think it was bad for the game. I think this money that we have now is unsustainable and has put the golf in a really weird spot. But, not to get sidetracked by that. I just think it was, I do think Rahm found himself in a situation that he hasn't been in for a little while. And he even said as much. It was so fun. Said it's the most fun he's had on a golf course in a long, long time, feeling the feels. And he talked about trying to manage the pressure. And he said, if anyone tells you they don't feel the nerves out there, they're lying, because it's all about battling the thoughts and the challenges in your mind in those kind of situations. And so, I just think at the end of the day, he had to press. He missed the birdies on, was it 13 and 14, where he had the opportunity, and then he had to press on the Green Mile, and it's just not one of those. Those 3 holes are ones you just can't really press on, and it came back to bite him. I don't think he played as bad as his bogey double finish reflected. Yeah. I just think he was in a situation where he had to push on the gas on holes that were kind of yellow to red light holes.
Are there certain guys? Well, I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter with him and live and points and things like that. But are there some guys that once they see it out of reach, they'll play a little safer just to make sure that they finish top 2 or 3 in a leaderboard?
I think if you're JT Poston, I think if you're, Riley, I think if you're some of those guys, there's a lot to play for to finish top 4, top 5. Top 4 gets you in the Masters. Top 10, gets you into this event next year. So there's a lot of things to play for. And then you think about money at the end of the year. Yeah. There's only 100 cards left anymore. It's not 125. It's only 100. And so you look at like Tony, for instance, and he went, 3 over on the Green Mile and went from tie 6th to tie 19th. That's a ton of money, right? And not that Tony's going to have to worry about money or where his position is at the end of the season, but there's a lot of guys that would come back and that would have been meaningful. And so not even just money to spend like for your livelihood, but money as it relates to keeping your job. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that are looking at it saying, hey, it's a tournament within the tournament. Scottie's got this thing in the bag. Let's just finish second, or let's finish top 5. Let's get to the house, at this number. I think there's a lot of that goes on, and it should go on. I mean, I think for guys like Rahm, I don't think that he cares because, 1, he's not on the PGA Tour, and 2, he's all about winning majors. A second-place finish doesn't really do anything for him or Bryson, and so at that point, it's why not go for broke.
What do we know about Harris English? That was a really impressive back nine he put together yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Harris is a great journeyman, player on the PGA Tour. He was down at Black Desert playing earlier this, last fall, and he's a good player. He's been around for a long time, and he got hot. And somebody usually does early, right? I mean, he dropped that 65, and I don't think anybody else was even close to that on Sunday. But he did it early, and I mean, he was interviewed. He went to the interview afterwards with Amanda, and she's like, asked him if he was going to hang around, and he's like, it's like, pretty sure Scottie's going to.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay.
So, he knew. Look, I mean, good for him though. But he's one of those guys that could benefit from that kind of a finish in a major championship, from points and money and all that kind of stuff. So, good for Harris. I don't think that changes my thoughts about the next, for the U.S. Open to start talking about Harris English. But he's a good player.
All right, so trying to think the right way to ask this. Bryson DeChambeau blaming the golf balls, and we got to go back to the manufacturer and work on golf balls. What's the story there?
He left the Masters talking about how he needed some irons, and he literally did this. If I had some irons, and I'm like, really? He's working with LA Golf. Everybody driving around, raise your hand if you're currently shopping for irons at LA Golf. My point is, and I said this on the show after the Masters, Tiger got chase and swing, right? He was dominating, and he fires Butch Harmon, fires Fluff Cowan, and goes with Hank Haney. And then he wins some majors with Hank, and then he fires him and goes with Chris Como. And then he changes. Now, maybe he had physical things. He would tell you that he had to change. I don't know all the intricacies. But it makes you wonder, if he'd have known his window of health was only so long, might he just stayed with Butch, where he was dominating, and picked off a few more major championships? Maybe he would have caught Jack at 18. So I look at that with Bryson. Is Bryson so hell-bent on doing it his way with his one-length irons, with his, he fired Cobra and threw them under the bus. And I know for a firsthand that Cobra spent millions and tens of millions of dollars in R&D to try to satisfy Bryson, and they don't make a bad product. This is not a Cobra problem. It's a Bryson problem. So now he's with LA Golf. He's trying to make his own irons with his own shafts, and now he wants to work with, I'm assuming, Titleist. He's playing Titleist. I'm assuming Titleist. I don't know that, but he's working with a ball manufacturer to create his own ball that will spin less because of the amount of the kind of swing speeds he puts on it. And the funny thing is that USGA has already said they're going to make the ball spinnier in a few years. So why would anybody put the money in just for Bryson and his craziness to try to change the ball that has to be changed in a few years? It won't even be legal. So I don't know. I sit and listen to him, Scotty. I'll be honest with you, it wears me out. I'm like, stop blaming everything else and figure out how to, like, there's hundreds of guys that have won with Titleist, Callaway, TaylorMade, Srixon, Cobra, King. I mean, you name it. Why not just go with someone that knows how to make good irons and just do it? Like, if that's really all it is, then that's on you. To me, that's on him. And I think he made some bad swings. I mean, look at Scottie. They talked about his driver. His driver didn't conform, and he had to switch heads. And so they said, did that have anything to do with you missing it left on Sunday? And he just laughs as he does. And he's like, no, that was me. I made bad swings, right? And Bryson's like, I don't make bad swings. So people make bad equipment, and so it ends up with me costing me championships. I'm like, really? I don't know. I'm not buying it.
Everybody talks about this reformation of Bryson DeChambeau, where he's changed, and all I think is he's hired a really good PR group that's helps him with the videos and helps him with the YouTube. But at the end of the day, when Bryson slips back into Bryson mode, he's still the same guy, and he's pretty doggone unlikable. I mean, that's just me. You don't have to say that, but I think there's a lot of PR spin and a lot of stuff to try to make him likable, and for the most part, it's been very successful. But every now and then, you still see the same guy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's like, he said afterwards, he goes, I'm a content creator and a pro golfer. I mean, he said content creator first, pro golfer second. And I'm like, you know what? I get it. I have kids. I see what it's all about. I'm even trying to do a little bit of that on Real Golf Radio. I don't love it, to be honest with you. But you know what? He's probably going to make more money playing live golf and being a content creator than he is being a PGA Tour pro. Fine, then be that. Yeah. But don't be so surprised or disappointed or blame everybody else that you don't win major championships. I think you have to be very dedicated to your craft. I don't think Scottie gives two licks about what happens on social media or any kind of content. He's just, he's got a job to do. He swings the golf club and he makes, shoots low scores and hoists trophies. I think that's different than being a content creator. So, again, not that Bryson isn't the reigning U.S. Open champion, not that he doesn't have a ton of talent, because he does, not that he couldn't be very likable and watchable. It just, when he goes off on that stuff, to me, it puts me off, and I don't know. But I'm an old guy now, Scotty, so maybe the young guys are like, we loved it. And by the way, walking around out there, Bryson has a massive army of fans. Like they love him out there. So
and that's the thing too. I mean, what he's doing is not intended for us. It's intended for a younger audience, and it's hitting. And God bless him for it, I guess. But I want to get into the technical aspect because I'm not that guy. I don't know that part of the game very well. What went sideways with Scottie Scheffler and that driver?
As far as the non-conforming part, or the fact that he kept missing left?
No, the non-conforming part. Where did they ding him on?
So basically what happens is these guys have a driver that's made, and the manufacturers put it right to the edge. Okay, so there's basically this face thickness that it has. There's a spring-like effect off of the face. And several years, like 20 years ago, they created this. It's a COR that you can't be any higher than. So they test the trampoline-like or spring-like effect of the face of these drivers. Well, manufacturers push it right to the limit. So these faces are super thin, and they want it because that's how you maximize distance, and that's how they sell golf clubs. And so what happens is, for you and me, we could have our driver for like 5 years. And we'd go out and we would hit it. I don't know how many times you'd hit it, but let's just say you hit it 200 or 300 times a year. These guys hit it 200 or 300 times in a week.
Yeah.
And they hit it at extremely fast swing speeds, and they hit it in the same spot repeatedly, where we're using the entire face, right? And so what happens is, over repetition at that kind of speed, the face starts to wear out a little bit. And as it wears out a little bit, being that it was already thin, now it becomes even thinner, and so it eventually will crack for a lot of these guys, and they have to replace the head. If it doesn't crack, it starts to become quote-unquote non-conforming. It's too thin.
Oh, okay.
It's a little too hot. And so the USGA randomly tests, and they've just started doing this recently. They'll randomly test driver heads, and if they're a little hot, they swap them out. And Scotty's like, it's not a big deal. It's part of it. For some reason, Rory, his got out, and everybody talked about Rory. And then he couldn't talk to anyone about it. And that made everyone suspicious. Like, why won't Roy talk about it? Why is this? And it's really a non-story, but by him not talking, it made it a story. So that's also another little side to it. But this is apparently relatively routine out on the PGA Tour, and is really nothing to talk about. And yet somehow it's become this big story.
So bottom line is, there's no ill intent there. It's just, you use your driver until you can't. And then, but sometimes you got to, once it gets to a certain level, you have to swap it out. If you don't, they'll catch you and tell you to do it. I mean, it's not like you're trying to gain any competitive advantage here.
Correct. It's not like anyone's trying to get away with anything. It's not an indictment on the manufacturers, not an indictment on the players. It's just simply a matter of the process. My question is guys change their wedges all the time, right? Like when the wedges actually wear out and they become less spinny, and the guys want the control that you can get from those spins. So they'll swap out wedges. Some people every week. That's not normal. Usually it's every couple months they'll swap wedges out so they have sharper grooves. I just wonder why at some point they look, hey, you know what, we had to probably plan on every 6 months swapping the driver head out. Although in this case it actually becomes a little bit better for them until it doesn't, when it cracks. And then you got to, if it cracks mid-round, you got to have somebody ready to bring you a head to swap it out, which you can. But if you don't have it with you or whatever, then you're in a bad spot. So
I was going to ask you that you could swap out a driver head mid round.
If it cracked under normal usage, right? That's kind of the rule. So if you're just swinging at it and it cracked, you could have somebody bring you a new head and swap it out. My understanding is, and I actually in my mind I'm thinking they might have changed this a little, but I think if you take out of anger and you just bashed your driver into the ground and it broke the head, I don't think you can replace that till after the round. But I could be wrong. I know there was some discussion on whether they were going to change that or not, but my understanding is if you do it out of normal swings and your equipment breaks, you can have somebody swap it out. But you can't stop play. Like somebody has to run it out to you or whatever.
So what you're saying is, my friend who in his men's league will take his Dremel and that disc and cut grooves into his irons. That's probably not great, right?
Yeah, you can't intentionally alter a club. That is technically illegal. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. But
hey, well, you know what? If it's just amongst your buddies, I mean, you guys can create your own rules.
There you go. So. Hey, BT, you're the best, man. Great coverage as always. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to Oakmont. I think it's going to be a crazy it's going to be a tough, crazy test out there, but we'll see. I think right now the betting favorite has to be Scottie Scheffler until we see Rory become a little bit more competitive. I think Rory's just going to bask in his triumph, which again, not critical of him. He can take all year to do that. I don't care, but until he comes back and says, "Yeah, I'm done with this. I'm ready to go win again," it's Scottie's to lose. So we'll see what happens.
There you go. You're the best, Brian. Appreciate it.
Okay, see you, boys.
There he is, BT, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.